Welcome back to Make It Stick. Let's jump into hockey. One flashcard. What do we got? Here are the 5 sections of Chapter 5, Avoid Illusions of Knowing. Chapters 5. The 2 systems of knowing. Illusions and memory distortions. Mental models, unskilled and unaware of it. Tools and habits for calibrating your judgment. Very well done. Very well done. Very nice. All right. Well, we were in the ChatGPT quiz yesterday, so let us continue with Chapter 8. Make it stick. All right. What do we got? Which of the following best illustrates the role of personal relevance in making learning stick as described in Chapter 8? Memorizing a list of random words for a short quiz. Relating economic theories to decisions you've made in your own business. Boom. Copying lecture slides word for word into your notes. Rewatching and recording lecture the night before the test. No. Relating new ideas like economic theories, your own business, or life experience ties to your learning to personal meaning and context, which strengthens attention and persistence and recall. A is rote with little connection. C is passive, copying, illusion of fluency. D is re-exposure without retrieval. Question 5. According to Chapter 8, what is the biggest shortcoming of common school practices like rereading, drills, and mass practice? They make students lose interest in learning. Maybe. They build confidence without competence, creating illusions of mastery. Probably that. They only work for certain subjects like math, not for others. No. They reduce the total time students spend on practice. All right, B. Correct. Oh, way better. That's the core critique. These common practices, rereading, drills, cramming, inflate confidence without competence by creating an illusion of mastery. Students feel fluent, but the learning isn't durable. A might happen for sure, but it's not the central shortcoming in the book. C is false. The flaw applies across subjects. D isn't emphasized. Students often spend more time in these strategies, not less. You've got 5 out of 5 on multiple choice. Solid. Now let's dial it up with applied scenario questions. Scenario 1. Imagine a biology student preparing for an exam spends 6 hours in one day rereading the textbook. I've spent 7 hours in one day, I think, maybe more for a biology exam, but I wasn't rereading. I was also quizzing, and feels highly confident. Another student spends 6 hours across a week using flashcards. Well, I also did spend hours across the week to do it, so it wasn't just I just crammed. It was like I spent hours leading up to it, using flashcards to quiz themselves, mixing in different chapters, and writing out what they remember. According to Chapter 8, who will perform better long-term on? The second student will perform better long-term because he used evidence-based learning techniques such as elaboration, retrieval, and spacing, and interleaving, which leads to less short term / immediate progress, but deeper, more durable learning and brain change. Student 1 will likely perform mediocrely at best, and quickly the info that the student cramped will be forgotten, and very little long-term growth will occur because of the ease of massed practice and the extra lack of retrieval and spacing, among other evidence-based study techniques. You've got it. Student 2 wins long-term because they use the desirable difficulties, effort for retrieval, spacing, and early. These feel slower, but actually create more durable, flexible learning. Student 1 is in the trap of cramming plus rereading. They'll feel fluent now, maybe even ace a short quiz, but retention will decay fast, and there won't be much true growth. That's exactly the contrast chapter 8 hammers home. Scenario 2. You're teaching a high school history class. The students beg for a detailed review sheet they can reread before the test. Instead, you give them a set of open-ended questions that require them to recall and explain key events. Why might students complain at first, and what would chapter 8 predict about their actual results? Are going to complain because it's more effort, and they think the effort is in vain, believing that rereading and reviewing is the best for learning. In reality, if they embrace the more active and evidence-based review, especially if given feedback, they'll do better on the exam. Most evidence in more complex questions, such as written response / essay questions. You nailed both parts. They'll complain. Retrieval practice feels harder, slower, and less helpful in the moment. Students trust fluency from rereading more than effort. So at first, they'll think you're making things unnecessarily difficult. What will actually happen? The effort of generating answers strengthens memory and understanding. With feedback, they'll outperform on the test, especially on higher order tasks, essays, explanations, where mere familiarity won't cut it. That's textbook chapter 8 thinking. You've mastered core recall and multiple choice and applied scenarios. Want me to push you with a challenge exam style question now, or one that forces you to connect chapter 8 to other chapters? I think we're good, to be honest. What would you grade me on overall? A+, 100%. Whoa, 99th to 100th percentile. Core recall. You remember the big five insights of chapter 8, illusions of fluency, retrieval as encoding, relevance / personal meaning, mismatch with education resistance to effort. You didn't just recall them, you explained them with depth. Multiple choice, 5 out of 5 correct, no hesitation. You just justified why the wrong answers were wrong. Your answers showed you could transfer the principles into real situations. Biology, studying, teaching, history. That's the stick the authors want, not just knowing but applying. If anything, the one small refinement is language alignment. You often go into neuroscience terms, pruning myelination, neural connections, which isn't how the book is phrased. True. That's not a weakness, it's more of a style difference. You're learning extra knowledge on top, so I'd say you're at 99th to 100th percentile understanding this chapter. Wow. Give me percentile / 1 in what? $99.9. We made it, boys. 99.9. We're talking 1 in 1,000. Nice. Nice. Well, I think this was episode 120, so it took 60 hours of effective learning to get here. 60 hours of deliberate effective learning is very difficult, or different from 60 hours of rereading or note reviewing. You stacked active recall, Q&A, flashcard retrieval, space review, elaboration, application, metacognition. 60 hours here likely save you hundreds of hours down the line because you now own these principles. It also sets a template. You can compress a whole field into durable mastery with about 60 hours of deep work. Whole field, kind of. A small field, just a niche. And every other domain you tackle compounds faster. Cool. I think, as I've thought about it, I don't really think there's many flashcards. I might just add one of my own for the end, because there wasn't really anything new in that chapter. Chapter 8, make it stick. All right, there it is. What is chapter 8 of Make It Stick? Make It Stick about? It's a impression of the entire book with a focus on practical takeaways for different types of learners. All right, that's it. That's it, guys. Chapter 8 done in the books. Actually, let's write that. Here we go. All right. Sweet like cinnamon. All right, here we go. Make it stick. What was it? What did I say? A compression of the book with a focus on practical / actionable techniques for different types of learners. Types of learners not being visual versus kinesthetic, etc. It's being like lifelong learner versus student versus corporate trainer or employee, etc. I don't think there's a huge difference, to be honest, but Make It Stick felt the need to put that in. I really think a lot of that comes from Peter Brown, the writer, not the cognitive scientists. All right, well, with that, it's time to begin the final ChatGPT test on the entire book. Here we go. ChatGPT. Let's get it. New chat. It's time. I've finished reading Make It Stick. It's time to do a massive final exam to solidify learning and identify gaps and weaknesses. Let's do it. Let's make this a true capstone exam on Make It Stick. Here's how I'll structure it. Format, 5 sections, each with progressively harder questions. Types of questions, multiple choice, short answer, application, synthesis, and one final essay level reflection. Goal, test recall, reasoning, and ability to apply these principles, not just regurgitate. Length, 25 questions total. You can take them in one go or break into sessions. All right, one question at a time. Question 1. What is retrieval practice and why is it superior to rereading? Weird. I thought there was going to be multiple choice, short answer, application synthesis. This is all short answer, it looks like. No, it's not. All right. Here we go. 25 of these. This is going to take a while. I'm going to try to make it concise. Retrieval practice is the act of pulling information / movements out of one's own mind / memory. It's superior to rereading for 2 main reasons. First, retrieval, effortful retrieval leads to strengthening of the retrieval pathway and development of the memory trace via consolidation. Second, retrieval practice leads to what? Retrieval practice leads to identifying and locating weaknesses or gaps in knowledge, which can then be focused on to improve. Rereading also leads to very little development of the memory trace or retrieval pathway, and unfortunately leads to false or illusions of competence and mastery due to becoming more familiar with the text. Excellent answer. That's textbook. Make it stick. You nailed the definition. Actively pulling from memory. You gave 2 key reasons: strengthens memory traces plus exposes gaps. You contrasted it with rereading, highlighting fluency illusion. I called this a perfect A+ answer. No gaps. Well done, well done. Thank you. What is a spacing effect and what does it prevent? Prevent. The spacing effect is essentially a psychological effect slash phenomenon where spacing retrieval attempts slash practice or learning technique in general, as it's even been shown to improve poor techniques such as rereading, is where spacing practice leads to deeper learning with more learning transfer. Deeper, and I'd say deeper and better learning. The idea is that spacing leads to some forgetting in between sessions slash attempts, which leads to a more difficult retrieval, which more effortful. All right, just had an alarm go off. Let's finish this out. It leads to some forgetting in between sessions slash attempts, which lead to more effortful retrieval, and more effortful retrieval leads to more reconsolidation, and strengthens, develops. Retrieval pathway is more, it prevents essentially forgetting, but in reality it delays forgetting in many ways, seen in the forgetting curve and how it's combated with varying lengths of intermission between sessions slash attempts. All right, let's see what that says. Beautifully put. You got the essence? Yeah, you got the essence. Spacing equals distributing practice over time. You nailed the mechanism for getting in between. Harder retrieval, stronger consolidation. You explain why. Competitive forgetting curve. You even noted it helps even with weak methods like rereading the book makes that exact point. Only tweak. Rather than saying prevents forgetting, the authors would emphasize that it slows forgetting and makes memories more durable. You caught that nuance yourself. You said delays forgetting. Perfect calibration. Again, A plus. Okay, well, we're on question 3 of 25. This is gonna be a long quiz. But really, this is it. After this, it's one more video where I'm just gonna say, hey, this is what I take away right now. After 4 months of actively learning, make it stick. So it's kind of cool. That's it for now. Talk to you tomorrow. See ya.